Listen up because I'm about to tell you something that'll change the way you deal with narcissists forever. Forget everything you think you know about fighting these egotistical monsters. Throw out the idea that you can win by getting into shouting matches or reasoning with them. That's the trap they want you to fall into. You don't beat a narcissist by confronting them. Oh no, my friend. You beat them by making them destroy themselves. And here's the kicker. You do it with the kind of precision, calm, and silence that'll drive them insane. You see, narcissists aren't as untouchable as they want you to believe. They're like glass castles painted with gold. On the outside, they look majestic, unbreakable, but all it takes is the slightest crack to bring them down. This isn't about getting your hands dirty. This isn't about flexing your muscles or running around like a chicken with its head cut off. No, this is about doing the quiet, cold, and calculated work that shatters their fragile empire. When you stop reacting, when you refuse to play their games, you become the one with the power. The truth is, narcissists are more scared of being irrelevant than being disliked. That's what the real power is. You want to know how to handle them? You make them irrelevant. You don't need to fight for justice or prove anything. You just have to disappear emotionally, become unreadable. And when you do that, they'll panic. They'll unravel. They'll turn on themselves. So let's get into this. It's time to talk about the first thing you need to know to bring a narcissist to their knees, their glass castle. 1. The narcissist's glass castle. Narcissists live in a world they've built themselves, a world that looks solid from the outside, but it's a house of cards waiting to collapse. They think they're untouchable. Their charm is their armor. Their arrogance is their power. But here's the truth. They're walking glass castles painted with gold. They'll make you believe they're gods, unbreakable, flawless. But the minute you start to look closely, you'll see the cracks. And once you see the cracks, all it takes is a little precision to make the whole thing come crashing down. You're not going to beat them by charging in with a sledgehammer. No, that's not the way. What you need is cold calculation. You need to find the weak spots and exploit them. The worst thing you can do is try to tear them down with brute force. It's like trying to break down a glass wall with a wrecking ball. All it's going to do is leave you tired, frustrated, and with nothing to show for it. Instead, you're going to quietly dismantle their foundation. One subtle move at a time. You'll stop feeding their need for admiration. You'll stop reacting to their antics. You'll stop playing their game. And that, my friend, is when you'll see them panic. Because the truth is they're not gods. They're fragile. They depend on their image, on the attention, on the adoration of others. But once that image starts to crack, they don't know what to do. They become desperate. They become desperate to hold on to that power. And that desperation, that's when they'll slip up. And that's when you strike. This is how you start breaking down the narcissist's walls. One calculated move at a time. Trust me, when you make them face the reality of their fragility, that glass castle is going to crumble all on its own. 2. The power of emotional detachment. Look, narcissists don't fear being disliked. They're used to that. In fact, they kind of thrive on it. But what really gets under their skin, what they really can't stand, it's being ignored, being made irrelevant. It's like a needle straight to the heart of their ego. See, they thrive on control, and that control comes from how you react. The more they provoke, the more they want to see you respond. They need to feel like they're pulling the strings that they've got you hooked. Every time you flinch, every time you bite, it's like giving them a little bit more of your soul to manipulate. But here's the irony. When you don't react, when you stop giving them the emotional response they crave, you take that control away. And you know what happens when you stop giving them the oxygen they need to survive? They suffocate. They panic. They unravel. Think of it this way. They're like a spoiled little child throwing a tantrum, demanding your attention. The more you ignore them, the more desperate they get. Eventually, they'll crack. You'll stop feeding into their drama, and they'll spiral out of control. Why? Because the one thing they can't stand is silence. Not just any silence, but the silence of someone who's no longer playing their game. You want to win against a narcissist? Stop reacting. Stop feeding into their need for validation. When you detach emotionally, you hold the power. The narcissist will scramble, they'll claw for any attention, but you've already checked out. And that, my friend, is when they lose. 3. Strategic silence as a weapon. Silence, when used right, isn't just a tool. It's a nuclear weapon in the war against narcissists. No, I'm not exaggerating. This is the kind of power that can bring down the mightiest empire with a single, calculated move. The narcissist is so dependent on your reaction, so desperate for your attention, that silence can be the most devastating thing you can do to them. You don't have to argue. You don't have to scream. You don't even have to lift a finger. All you need is to be still. When you stop responding to their games, their attacks, their endless need for validation, that's when the magic happens. Silence breaks them down in ways you can't even imagine. And here's why. The narcissist's ego is built like a fragile house of cards. Every reaction you give them, every emotional outburst, every word just reinforces their illusion of power. But silence? Silence blows their world apart. It's like dropping a stone into a pond and watching the ripples spread. They try to provoke you, to reel you back in. They'll scream, they'll lie, they'll beg, they'll manipulate, but none of it works. You remain cold, composed, unaffected. When they see that their tantrums aren't getting a rise out of you, that's when the panic sets in. The narcissist's greatest fear isn't being hated, it's being ignored. Silence doesn't just withhold attention. It reflects their emptiness. And that reflection? It terrifies them. It's like holding up a mirror and showing them that everything they've built is a lie. And that silence, that void you've created, it's what'll force them to face their own emptiness. When you stop feeding into their illusions, you watch as their mask starts to crack. They can't keep pretending anymore. They'll unravel, they'll expose themselves, and you'll still be standing there, calm as ever, watching them fall apart. 4. Feeding their ego. Now, you might be thinking, wait, isn't the whole point of this to starve a narcissist of attention? So why would I feed their ego? That, my friend, is the secret sauce, the Machiavellian twist that'll leave them reeling. You see, narcissists are like cats. You dangle a little piece of string, and they'll chase it with everything they've got. But you don't do it to flatter them. No, you do it to set the trap. You build their ego up, make them feel invincible, let them believe they're untouchable. But all the while, you're setting the stage for their downfall. What's the catch? Simple. You make them overconfident. You make them think they've won. And when they think they've won, that's when they start to slip. They become reckless. They overstep. They'll take more risks, show more of their hand. And every move they make, every boast they boast, every lie they tell, becomes the very thing that'll bring them down. Here's the beauty of this. Narcissists have this insatiable hunger to feel superior, to be admired. They'll believe any flattery, no matter how outrageous, because it feeds into their delusion. So you give them just enough. Not too much, not too little. You stroke their ego, just enough to make them feel like they're on top of the world. Then you watch. You watch as they build their own tower of ego, higher and higher, until it topples under its own weight. You didn't destroy it. They did. You just made it easier for them to fall. And when it crashes, you'll be there, standing, unaffected, while they bury themselves in their own hubris. That's the Machiavellian play. Make them feel untouchable, and then let them crash. The higher their ego rises, the harder it falls. And all you had to do was stay quiet, stay calm, and let them do the rest. 5. Control the narrative. Listen up, because this is where the game really changes. Narcissists live and breathe through control. They craft their story like a writer spinning a tale. And in that story, they're always the hero or the victim, but never the villain. It's always about them. They manipulate facts, twist reality, and rewrite history to fit their image. The moment they think they've got everyone believing their version of the truth, they win. But here's the twist. You can control the narrative. You can rewrite their script without them even realizing it. And the beauty of it is, you don't need to confront them head on. You don't need to attack their lies directly. You simply need to plant seeds of doubt. You need to start flipping the script, but you do it subtly, surgically. Think of it like this. Every narcissist has a carefully crafted facade. They need people to see them as either the victim or the hero. But if you start asking the right questions at the right moment, people start to pause for just a second. They start to think. They start to question. And that's all it takes. That's the beginning of their unraveling. You're not going to blow their cover with an outburst or a public fight. No, you're going to do it quietly. You're going to make them expose themselves without them even knowing. Ask questions that make them uncomfortable. Smile while you watch them squirm. That's how you start changing the story. You don't need to shout or argue. You just need to watch, observe, and then let them overplay their hand. And here's the beautiful part. When you control the narrative, the narcissist has no choice but to react. Every lie they tell, every person they manipulate, becomes evidence of their true nature. You don't need to expose them. They'll expose themselves. Their own behavior becomes the proof. Now, here's where the power really lies. When you start planting doubt, you don't just change their narrative. You change how everyone else sees them. And when people start to question the narcissist version of the truth, that's when the walls come crashing down. Because narcissists don't just need attention, they need belief. And the moment you start dismantling their carefully crafted story, the moment you break that illusion, they're done. You're not the one in the spotlight. You're the one quietly pulling the strings from the shadows. You're the one controlling the play. You're the one who decides how the story ends. And when you rewrite the narrative, the narcissist world becomes a house of cards waiting to collapse. All you had to do was ask the right questions, plant the right seeds, and then watch it fall apart. So let's wrap this up. If you want to handle a narcissist the Machiavellian way, it's simple. Don't confront them head on. Instead, tear down their glass castle by staying emotionally detached and unreadable. Use silence like a weapon and let them drown in their own ego. Feed their vanity just enough to make them overconfident and watch them implode. And when it comes to controlling the narrative, don't fight them for attention. Quietly flip the script and let them expose themselves. The power isn't in confrontation. It's in control, and control isn't loud. It's quiet and deliberate. If you're ready to stop letting narcissists run the show, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below. Share your thoughts or your own experience. And don't forget to check out the other videos. We've got plenty more strategies to help you master the game. Trust me, you won't want to miss it.